Transformers Armada. Many a lad's first step into Transformers. I haven't finished it, but from what I've watched, I understand why it got so popular. Damn, those human characters are annoying. My main draw to Armada when I was a kid was definitely the toys. Some of them, namely the Megatron and the Optimus, still kinda hold up. But the real draw to Armada was those damn 2-inch tall transforming mini-cons. These things had me in a chokehold as a child. Anyway, we're talking about another Transformers game. You wanted it, and today on the board we have Transformers 2004. This was a game that I had always admired from afar when I was younger. I saw it on the little corner of the internet growing up, but I really never got the game to experience it on the grandparents' PS2. Yeah, everybody had the grandparents' console. You know which one it was. That being said, I did get around to playing it, and we're going to talk about it right now. Now. Okay, here we go. The screen is fading this time. That means we're... Yeah.
I would have waited an eternity for this.
Developed by Atari and Melbourne Games, this game was an exclusive to the PS2. This game is also not canon to the Unicron trilogy, which Armada belonged to. The game had its worldwide debut at Transformers Con 2004, and even in 2005 there was a director's cut released with clips about development. This is after release, so kind of skipping ahead here. This documentary is an interesting watch and unveiled a lot of cool details about development. Kyuji Kawase, an animator for the Final Fantasy series, took on the role for CG director. The models of the game were created by Melbourne and then sent overseas for Japanese animation, which I thought was a pretty cool touch. The devs were really focused on making the Transformers look cool and, I quote, better than the toy. During development, the sound design got actors David Kaye and Gary Chalk to reprise their roles as Optimus and Megatron. Also, this is a side thing, but I think this is Darren Norris's first role as a Transformer. He voiced Red Alert and Cyclonus. For those who don't know, Darren is the voice of the wonderfully fruity Knockout.
Sweet rims. 24 gauge.
On another side tangent, I actually met him at a con, and he was super nice. Getting back to the game, this game utilized a lot of collaborative development, and the studio seemed to want to push new ground with this project. Transformers released to generally favorable reviews, and many praised how innovative the game felt, how great the graphics were, and how well put together it was. Many, at the time, expected the game to be nothing more than a licensed cash grab, and not a genuine passion project looking to innovate. Transformers was taken really seriously during development, and they really wanted to capture adult and child audiences with the game. And it was really cool to see how far we've come watching this game development documentary. Now, the story is very loosely based on Armada, but like only the idea of Armada, that being the Autobots and Decepticons looking for minicons on Earth. As you look for the minicons, you face Megatron's army of Decepticlones and a couple other Decepticons from the show. There's some pretty cool events that happen throughout the game, like traveling around the world, infiltrating and fighting Tidal Wave, and fighting Megatron in a volcano. After beating Megatron, Optimus tries to save him because he's just a cool guy like that. Megatron falls into the volcano, and then it's revealed that Unicron is attacking Cybertron, which kind of came out of nowhere, but that's not the point. The game then becomes Star Fox, and you face off against Unicron. This is pretty... yeah, we'll talk about it later. After beating Unicron, you take back Cybertron, and Optimus hits the...
Till all are one.
and the game ends. The story of the game is nothing crazy. You definitely have to know the basics of Armada and the Unicron trilogy to kind of know what's going on in the first place, but it's pretty standard other than that. It's actually not too bad, but it's nothing insane. It definitely doesn't stand on its two legs, but if you know what's going on, it's enjoyable when characters show up and stuff like that. The problem with it, though, is that there's not really a story, other than, hey, find minicons, and that's about it. I think if they had added some story progression cutscenes in between levels, that would have massively boosted the experience of the story. Like, even if there was just things like Starscream saying, hey Megatron, evil stuff, blah blah blah, and then Megatron's like,
go.
Starscream!
Man, what the fuck? Man, I don't want to talk to your bitch.
There's really nothing that shows that. Megatron literally shows up at the beginning cutscene and the final boss when you fight him. That's it. That's the only time you see Megatron. There's not much more to say other than this game isn't really a Red Dead Redemption 2 to say at the least. It's coherent if you know the story of Armada, but it's more so the start of Armada, the end of Armada. That's the extent of the story.
Pride. You don't even know when you've won.
Gameplay was actually shockingly in-depth. I fully expected a regular third-person shooter where you just blast a bunch of shit, but there is a shit ton of different abilities. Like, goddamn, there are so many different minicons. There's over like 40, I think, which is crazy. There's 4 different types of minicons. There's 4 different types of minicons, some that change your basic weapons to shoot different types of bullets and rays, others that boost certain stats or give you the ability to produce defensive shields, other minicons that give you utility things like rockets, grenades, flashbangs, EMPs, and the final minicon type is usually something that's essential to the level or exploration, such as a higher jump or a glider. Fortnite invades all. I did find that some of these minicons more or less did the same thing as others, but just a little stronger or a little weaker. That's besides the point. Going into this game, I knew minicons were going to be a central part of the game. Well, this is literally like the selling point of Armada, of course they were going to be. But I didn't know that they were going to be so involved in your gameplay. I found myself gravitating towards high defense, high damage, AoE minicons, for reasons we'll discuss later. And that's what helped me get through some of the rough segments of the game. Anyway, aside from the minicons, you also have the option to play as 3 characters, that being Hotshot. I'll be honest, I did not play Hotshot at all. Red Alert and Optimus were the characters that I touched. These characters have different stats such as speed, power, etc. Speaking of speed, this was, from what I understand, the first Transformers game to utilize transformations the way the game does. And I was a bit surprised at how seamless the transformations felt for that being the case, in the age of the game, of course. I will say that sadly they don't really have that many dedicated segments for driving, so you don't transform all that much, to be honest. Each character also has a different sidekick minicon that gives them a specific ability. You can't change these as these are unique to certain characters. But the thing about these is that they drain your health while you use them, and for reasons we'll talk about later, you can't really expend any health in this game. So I maybe used Optimus's once, maybe twice. There is so much variety when it comes to the style you want to play or the way you want to approach levels, and that's great and all, but there's one thing that makes gameplay unbearable at times, and I'm going to blue ball you guys because this is going to get its own small little segment, and that's going to tie back into this one, so we'll get back to gameplay later. Oh, also, the ragdoll animations, priceless. Priceless. We need to bring these back.
Come, Autobot.
Levels were also surprisingly great. I was not expecting large open expanses to explore and replay. You usually have a set objective in each level with the capability to explore the area and find minicons and data disks. You visit a lot of different areas in these levels, such as the Amazon to remote islands to the Antarctic to the inside of a starship. God. The starship. These levels are very large and pretty. Pretty to look at, to be honest. And we'll get back to that when we go to graphics, but they are very pretty levels. You can come back to each level after completion, and you are able to reach areas previously not available with the use of traversal minicons. Now, the levels, and like I said before, gameplay, has one big shortcoming. Okay, on one hand, the enemies don't get stale. There's a lot of variety when it comes to how many different kinds of enemies, but good lord, they shovel so many enemies at you with massive health bars. It is ridiculous. I mean, without the exact right build, you have to mag dump basic enemies like 3 times, and reloading takes a while for some guns. And it's not like there's 2 or 3 at a time, it's like 30. And on top of that, 5 variations of enemies which have more health when there's 30 basic ones. And since there's so many enemies, your health bar gets blasted if you aren't spamming deflect minicons or defense minicons. And it got to the point where I just ran past a lot of the enemies for a lot of the time. I played this game on medium, initially hard, but it was just ridiculous. And it was the same on medium. When I replay this game, I'm definitely playing it on easy mode for a bit more of an enjoyable experience. This wouldn't be as much of an irritating problem if it wasn't for the fact there are literal tons of enemies with, again, massive health bars. And they are just bulldozed right in front of you. If you were faced with 7 or 8 enemies with smaller health bars along with one enemy that took more hits, that would have been a much more enjoyable gameplay loop. One of the most egregious segments of the game was the Starship mission. I do not understand who thought this was a good idea. Like, come on, bro. There's no way motherfuckers developing this thought it was a great idea to stack rooms back to back with enemies that take forever to kill. I was obviously able to get through the game, and it wasn't nearly as annoying as a previous game from the early 2000s. But that doesn't mean I don't think parts of it couldn't have been better. I didn't finish my segments on the level design and gameplay because it feels like enemies going hand in hand with those. Gameplay and level design in this game were both top tier in their own regards, but damn, I did find my enjoyment brought down by the enemies that are just plastered all over, like everywhere. That's kind of what I wanted to tie into those, and I hope you guys understand why I kind of cut those short because of this problem that the game has. Graphics. These guys cooked. This game looks damn good for a lot of reasons. I know that they had the goal to translate the toys to the game, but better, and they did. The CG cutscenes in this game were really great looking, and I'm kind of sad that there weren't more of them to progress the story in between each level. I really do think that they could have pushed certain aspects of the game further. In-game, there's also a lot to look at. I mean, the devs seemed really intent on making the game feel like Transformers could be more adult and reach wider audiences, and they did want it to be a bit edgier. This was during 2004, and things were great back then. They wanted character models and environments to be super detailed, and each character model looks really good. And they definitely accomplished their goal of making the toys into the game, but even better. I think the graphics is definitely one of the strong suits of the game, and it felt like the way the devs were trying to show what they thought the Transformers could be, and they accomplished it. So you fight a handful of the main Decepticons throughout the game: Cyclonus twice, Starscream twice, Tidal Wave, Megatron, and Unicron at the very end of the game. And these are definitely some of the most memorable parts of the game. I'm not saying they're the best parts of the game, but they are pretty big spectacles. I think these are really great showcases of what the devs wanted to show. But the problem with them is that they aren't the most well crafted at times, especially when it comes out to their damage versus your damage. They kind of just trample you if you aren't spamming defensive 24/7, and Tidal Wave has the unique issue of the only way to damage him is to hit him in the head. And he's like, I mean, come on, just look at this guy. He's literally just a aircraft carrier. So you can only damage him using the sniper minicon. So if you're not equipped with the sniper minicon right off the bat, you have to let yourself die so you can swap out to the sniper minicon to shoot him in the head, which is lame. That's lame. Why? I know it's like an obvious answer. Oh, I have a sniper minicon. But come on, man. Really? Like, you couldn't just shoot him a bunch in the legs and he falls over maybe? I don't know. That was lame. And as for Unicron, this was pretty sick. Straight Devil May Cry 1 gameplay switch up, like going from a hack and slash to an arcade rail shooter. But it's kind of anticlimactic. When I went through the first 3 health bars, I got really excited. I was going to fight Unicron in robot form. Right? Right. Yeah, no, you just do the same thing. And he rolls away and blows up. Anyway, I had a lot of fun with these bosses. I think Megatron was pretty good. He's like initially titled as the final boss until you fight Unicron. And I just think that the arena that they put you in and stuff like that, it worked really well. There was space you could create and a little bit of breathing room. I had fun with these bosses, but they have some balancing issues and some of that classic game jank that just makes them slightly a chore.
Till all are one.
Transformers Armada was a huge step forward for Transformers media outside the shows and toys. Watching the documentary of the making of the game showed that they were trying to pull it off, and it was pretty admirable. I'll throw up the rating on the board right now, and we'll go through it. Story, I think that the story is decent if you know the basics of Armada, as you can apply it to the game, but other than that, it's one of those games that throws a story goal on the board and has you bullet point in between. Gameplay. I think that they had really good thoughts when they were creating the game, and it applicated really well into the game. There's a lot of versatility, and it was definitely not as linear as I thought it was going to be, but this is harkened by the game's enemies. Level design. This was another thing that I was surprised by. The game is really big sandbox levels, and there's a lot to find. But again, enemy placement and the amount of bullet sponges in your way kind of brings the experience down. Graphics. I know they were trying to do something ahead of the time to show their ability that Transformers could look cool, and they accomplished it with a pretty damn good looking game. Bosses bring a lot of spectacle to the game, and they're always quite the event, especially Tidal Wave, Megatron, and Unicron. But they lack the touch. Yeah, I said the thing. To make them really good bosses. I was really excited to play this game as another step in my playing every Transformers game journey, as this was one I hadn't stepped into before. I think this game had a lot of really big, ambitious ideas, and overall, I would say it delivered on those ideas. This game was definitely a stepping stone for future games and brought strong bones. It wasn't a perfect game, nor a masterpiece, but it was a pretty enjoyable experience. And that was Transformers 2003, a good start on the path of more recent Transformers game. I was happy to cover it and go deeper down the path of these wonderful transforming robots. So that being said, I've got a couple ideas for videos in the works. I'm really excited to cover more Transformers games and maybe some newer games. And there's what
Zeus, your son has returned. I bring the destruction of Olympus.
Oh yeah, we're doing it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching so much. I appreciate it. I really do. I know videos have been kind of spaced out lately. I've been really busy, but I always enjoy making videos for you guys. Anything is appreciated in the comments, criticisms, all this kind of stuff. Likes, comments, subscribes. Anything is appreciated. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys are doing great wherever and whenever you are. And that's really all about it. Later.